everybody, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a video about homeschooling. So if you're new to my channel, hey y'all, how y'all doing? My name's Shakima. I'm a single mom. I have 4 children. I have 2 girls, 2 boys, 1 fur dog named Gracie, and we have a fur grand dog. His name is Agro. We're living our very best life around here, doing all the things. I did notice that I have a lot of new subscribers, so you guys probably are not very familiar with our family. So I will share this with you. I have a 30-year-old. Her name is Shamika. I have a 24-year-old. His name is Trandon. I have a 16-year-old Alana and an 11-year-old Jackson and a almost 4-year-old named Gracie. So I'm a single mom. I've been a single mom since Jackson was 4 months old. My ex-husband decided he no longer wanted to be a part of our family, and he just one day up and left us. And I have found myself being a single mom since. But God has been good, and he has graced us, and he has allowed me to move along in this journey. So in the very beginning of my homeschool journey, well, let me backtrack. I am by profession, a public school employee. I'm what's called a career development coordinator. I started in the classroom as a classroom teacher. I did 20, let me see. I'm going into my 23rd year, or is it my 24th year? I think I finished my I'm retiring it soon, so I gotta get it right. But anyway, I was in the classroom, I think, for 21 and a half years. And then I have came out of the classroom in February of 19 to move into a career development facilitator position. So I no longer work at one school. I now work primarily at 3 middle schools. And then I also transition into 4 elementary schools. So I will work with all the 5th graders in those 4 elementary schools, and then all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in my other schools. So I am very much a proponent of public schools. I love what I do. I love my job. My older 2 children graduated from public schools. Both of them. My son was in my homeroom all 4 years of his life. He could never get away from me. And then my daughter went to my middle school when I taught middle school, when she was in middle school. And then when I was in high school, she also was in my high school as well. So my kids have never been able to get away from me. And I was that parent who said, I don't think I could ever homeschool my children. I just couldn't teach my own kids. Although I've taught my daughter, I've taught my son, and now I'm teaching the younger 2. They actually took a class that I taught. Now, normally you don't teach your own kids, but I was the only teacher in the building that taught that subject. So my kids became my students. So of course I had, all of my children are so far apart in age. Between my oldest and youngest, there's 19 years. And, we didn't think we were going to have kids in that, that far apart. That's just how it fell. When I had Alana, I knew that I wanted her to go to private school, not because public school was bad or there was anything wrong with it. I just wanted her to have a Christian base to her schooling. But as soon as we were getting ready to enroll Alana in Christian school, I found that I was pregnant with my son. And of course, I was going through a rocky marriage at the time, and it just was not well. And so when Jackson came along, I didn't have enough money because I had to go back to work. I didn't have enough money to afford a private Christian school for Alana plus daycare for Jackson. So I had to make a choice, because even before my ex-husband left, we both worked. So we needed childcare. We had to have childcare. But when I found I was pregnant with Jackson, that whole private school for Alana went away. And again, the only difference in her schooling was I wanted a biblical base for her schooling, we're a Christian family, and that is what we believe in. And I just wanted that for her. Well, again, fast forward to the next year when Jackson is being born. 4 months in, his dad leaves, and now I am a single mom, and I have to figure out how I am going to school these kids and how I'm going to feed them. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about schooling them, how I'm going to feed them. So Jackson went to daycare. Alana went to public school. When they were in when Alana was in 4th grade and Jackson was just about to transition into kindergarten, at our church, we had a church meeting and they were going to open a church co-op for any of the kids, because we have a lot of kids that want, in the families that want to be able to homeschool, because the church was going to be open for several hours during the day. There would be different parents that would help in and out. And then one of the other ladies she was our children's church coordinator. She was in the process of opening a home daycare. So it was like, if you need childcare, Shantae will be here for that. But if you need schooling, then everybody else that is a part will be here for that. Well, I knew I would not be able to do any of that because I'm a single mom. And so I was at this meeting with all of these families, and it's just me. You got husband and wife number 1, husband and wife, and husband and wife. You have all the people and Shakima. And so I'm sitting and I'm listening to all the information, and I'm just praying, Lord, how am I going to be able to do this? Lord, how am I going to be able to do this? Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Lord, help me. And finally, during the meeting, I just got up, I ran into the bathroom, and I just started crying my eyes out, because I knew I was the only person sitting in that room that was going to be unable to do the co-op, because I didn't have the resources to do it. I didn't have a husband that could help me. I didn't have a way to teach in the school because I was teaching full-time in my job. I was still in the classroom then. I wasn't going to have a way to get the kids to the co-op and still go to work and pick them up and then go. So I just knew I didn't have all the pieces, and I'm in the bathroom and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And my pastor's wife comes in and her daughter comes in, and they're like, Shakima, it's going to be okay. We're going to help you. Don't worry. It's going to work out. Don't worry. And I'm sitting in that room after I'm thinking about it later, and all of those families in that room, in that meeting, out of all the families that were there, the only families that were able to homeschool was my pastor's wife's grandkids and my kids. They were the only ones. And here I am thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this for my kids. And the Lord made a way. And the reason being is because we had to pay for childcare, and I was working full time, so I could pay for childcare because I was paying for it with Jackson when he was in daycare. So what ended up happening was, in order for my friend to start her daycare business in her home, she had just had a baby. She was just getting ready to have a baby. She had just had Gabriel. And she wasn't going back to her full-time daycare job. She was like the assistant of the daycare center. But her husband wanted her to stay at home. So she was staying at home, but she needed to generate some income. So she agreed to take my kids in daycare. And then she would take them, I think it was 2 days a week to co-op, where they would be with the church kids, which were my pastor's wife's grandchildren, 2 girls. So it was 2 girls and my boy and girl. And she kept them for me and ran them back and forward here and there for 3 years. 3 years. And she did all the things. So the first thing I want to say to you is, your situation may not look like somebody else's, but you can figure this out. I had to figure it out. It was like, okay, do I want to save my money and send my kids to public school? Or do I want them to have this biblical-based education and pay somebody else the money to watch them for me? So that piece worked out. My childcare situation, like how was I going to find childcare? So look around in your community. See if there's anybody in your community, in your village, in your tribe, whatever you call it, your people, who find themselves in a similar situation as you, and y'all can maybe barter and swap services. So for me, Shantae kept my kids. I paid her for that. It may not be that simple for you and your family. You may have to say, okay, I'll keep your kids on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday if you keep the kids on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If that's how you have to trade it off. Now, we're fortunate in North Carolina, so tip number 2, if I'm giving tips, tip number 2 is know your rules. Know the homeschooling rules in your state where you are. Across North Carolina, the only thing we have to do is take attendance, and we have to test the kids once they get to the age of testing. If your children are less than 7 years old in North Carolina, you don't even have to register your school. So I didn't have to register Jackson until he turned 7 years old. I did have to register Alana because I pulled her out when she was going into 5th grade. Now, can I just give a shout out to my public school system? Because Alana had been in school, I went to the school in the summer and I had pulled her out, got all her records. I asked for a copy of her records just so I could have them. I just have them on file here, nothing deep. But when school started, the secretary called. They said, we're just calling to check on Alana to make sure everything is okay. She hasn't enrolled in school. The principal called. They said, oh, we're just checking to make sure everything is okay. Alana hasn't returned to school. And so, of course, I, told them, no, everything's fine. We pulled her out for homeschooling. And of course, because they knew I was a teacher in the county, they were like, well, you're teaching and the kids ain't in school. What's the problem? But I'd already taken care of that because they were going to the in-home daycare. And my friend had her daycare paperwork. All her stuff was perfect. Worked out great. So you just have to know your school. So Jackson, my 11-year-old, has never once been to school ever. He didn't start kindergarten. And he actually, when he went into the homeschool group at the church, he skipped kindergarten because the little girl that they schooled with was in 1st grade. So he automatically bumped into 1st grade. So he has totally skipped kindergarten. Now, North Carolina will also allow 2 non-related homeschool families to school together. So my family could school with that other family, even though they were just there a couple days a week, and I'm the principal of their school all the other days. So they were not there every day. They were just there a couple days a week. So we just have to take attendance and we have to test. So once they get into 3rd grade, you're doing the testing. We use the California Achievement Test. It's the easiest for my schedule because I do work full time. I work 40 plus hours a week out of the home. And so it's easiest. I do the untimed because my kids cannot handle that time pressure. Sister can't handle the time pressure. Jackson is okay. If I said, hey, you got 30 minutes, he would zippity dip on through and be done. Sister can't handle the time pressure. So I do untimed for both of them. Now, with that being said, once you get your childcare situation taken care of who's going to do, are they going to be with you? Are they going to be with somebody else? Or however, remember this. This is a great tip for you guys. Homeschool doesn't have to look like public school. You don't have to school your kids from 7:30 to 3:30. That's not how it has to be done. North Carolina says you have to be in school 180 days. Perfect. But it doesn't have to be 180 days Monday through Friday. Sometimes we have school on Saturdays. We might have school on Sunday because I'm home. And if I'm home, then those are my teaching days. Those are the days that I actually teach my kids their new curriculum or review something that they had issues with. What else do I want to say about that? So it looks totally different. Your classroom at home may look different than my classroom would in a regular public school setting. I might have 25. I know my highest numbers, I had over 28 computers. I'm a computer teacher. So I had over 28 computers in my room. Every computer is going to be used. So I'm one teacher for 28 kids in 90 minutes. That's a minimum of 3 minutes per kid that I can give them. If I'm looking at 30 kids at 3 minutes is 90 minutes. That's 3 minutes per kid. You're just automatically descaling your school back to 1 kid, 2 kids. Your time doesn't have to be 90 minutes on each subject. It's as much as we can get done. Now, with that being said, curriculum. So if you have smaller kids, I know with Jackson, because Alana uses a computer-based curriculum. And the reason we use computer-based curriculum is because I work full-time. And because I work, I don't have time for grading. I don't have time to be going back and checking papers. I have no time for any of that. So I put her on a computer-based curriculum. It's called Switched On Schoolhouse. It's an Alpha and Omega product, biblical based. They also have a sister curriculum called Monarch that is where it's internet based. But because I regulate and monitor internet usage here at my house, my kids, their curriculum is loaded onto their computer. They don't have access to the internet. So you can choose. With that, I set up their school. I set up their school to mimic my school schedule. So if I'm on a work day, the kids are off. Although if they need help on a subject or something that they didn't understand, because I am home then, I'm able to help them on those off days. If I'm on vacation for like winter break, they're on winter break. If I'm on spring break, they're on spring break. And partially because I do work full time, I wanted to make sure that when I was on break, we were all on break. We all need a break. We're tired. But because it's just the two of them, they get their work done very quickly. So going back to the 8:30 to 3 or whatever time your kids start school, my kid's sweet spot is probably about 9:30 to 10 o'clock when they start school. Jackson can probably be done by lunchtime. So from about 9:30 to noon, Jackson is done with school. Sister, because she is going into 11th grade, so her subjects are a little bit more challenging. She might have days where she can be done from 9:30 to 12:30, but some days she is schooling from 9:30 to 3:30. It just depends on the day and what she's going over. Now, with that being said, because she is high school, I made a decision to block her schedule. So she is like a 4x4 block like I would have at school. So again, your school doesn't have to look like school, but because I am a public school teacher, it works in my brain to block her like I would my normal students. And sister needs additional time. She got very frustrated from, I think, grade 6, 7, and 8, definitely 8th grade. She got overwhelmed with doing all 5 subjects at a time. So they do science, math, language, social studies, and Bible. Those are their 5 base core curriculums. For PE, because they both do Taekwondo 4 days a week, plus they're on travel team Taekwondo, that's their PE all year long. But then I require additional things. Alpha and Omega, the curriculum that we use now, you can start that on your computer in 3rd grade. So, but it doesn't have any African American history. I wanted my children to learn African American history. So I booked them out another course through a friend of mine. She has a website, I'll link it if I can remember, that does specific African American history. And so we were part of a research group. She was getting her curriculum made and testing it out, and we were part of that study. And so we did that for 2 years. That was the study we did for 2 separate years. Also, anything home chores are under home economics or family consumer sciences, to include laundry, cleaning, prepping meals. They prep their breakfast, they prep lunches, they actually prep dinners, budgets. Anything for budgeting is financial literacy, financial planning. And then for an elective this past year, Alana actually took a theater class. We have community theater in our area, and she would take community theater once a week. And that was a fine arts elective for her. So I listed that as fine arts. So I am in the process of building her transcript because she's in high school. So let me jump back to lower grades curriculum. Because you can't start Alpha and Omega until 3rd grade, or you can't start Switched on Schoolhouse till 3rd grade. For Jackson, when he was in 1st grade and 2nd grade, it was curriculum books. It was workbooks. So I would buy a couple workbooks. Ollie's is a good place to check for workbooks. Also, the Dollar Tree has beginner workbooks. Walmart has workbooks. Sam's Club or Costco have workbooks. And you can also order online, Amazon, different places like that. Now, a suggestion for a homeschooler that is absolutely phenomenal. Now, she stays at home, but I like her eclectic style and her way of explaining homeschool. And my kids always get her reading list. She has a lot of African American books that she promotes. which my kids don't traditionally get with their curriculum that they have. But her name is Erica, and her YouTube channel is My Busy Bees and Me. I'll link her as well, because we always get her reading list. Even if we don't do anything else that she does, I always check her reading list. She has a blog, and she also has a YouTube channel. And I just absolutely love, and she has just graduated. Her oldest son, I think, graduated. I think she has an older child, but I've not been watching her that far back. I've been watching her since her oldest son graduated. Well, since he's been homeschooled. And then she has 3 smaller ones now that she is still schooling. Her husband is in the military. They are a travel family because he gets different, places or stations. They are in the process of moving right now. And so they school that way. But I love her reading list, and then I love her eclectic style of putting things together and picking and pulling your curriculum. So curriculum, again, North Carolina here does not require me to use a specific curriculum. It requires me to take attendance and test. That's it. So again, workbooks for your younger grades, and they don't have to have schooling all day. When we went to stay at home in March, because Jackson works very quickly. Let me go back. I'm jumping around, but my thoughts are so jumbled right now, trying to hit it all. I block out sister. So that means she might have math and science at the same time. And then she'll have history and social studies at the same time. So she'll have math and science from August till December. And then she'll have history and social studies from January to May. So that's only 2 classes. So then I have to put in 2 more classes. For her, normally it's some type of a fine art or music. This year they did music with piano. So Shakima, how do you teach piano? Shakima doesn't teach piano. But I find playlists on YouTube that teach basics of piano. We're staying at home right now. We cannot go to the piano teacher's house, but my kids are still learning piano. Jackson can read music. He actually takes the same piano classes that sister takes, but he can read music. And so that was just new since March for us. So they have music 3 days a week at least. I try to have music every day. Cursive writing, we add in cursive writing. They have Bible every day of the year on both schedules. So I would do math, science, and Bible, music, then always home ec of some kind. Cooking, culinary, you can always change those names out to culinary if she's doing a little bit more than just your basic cooking. I keep her in that family consumer science, but Jackson also learns the same things. And then in the next time, she had history, social studies. Oh, she had history and language. History and language. Theater was another one. Then she had her PE class, and they also had Bible. So they get their electives. They get all of their credits. How many credits determine whether they graduate? In North Carolina, I determine when she graduates. But because I am a school teacher, I went online to the North Carolina Public Schools to see what they require of high school graduates. And I pretty much follow that to make sure that she has what she needs in case she wants to go to college when she graduates. Now, she will probably be my kid that takes a gap year and she needs a break from school. Jackson is going into the military. He's already decided he's going into the Air Force. So I'm not even worried about what he'll need for college, but I do keep him college track. It just works out better for my family. One of my best pieces of advice I ever got was from a lady. Her name is Andrea Thorpe. She is in a homeschooling group that I'm in on Facebook. I was struggling and stressing out because you see all these great homeschool things from this parent and this family, and they're looking great, and they got this schedule and all the things. She said, Shakima, never compare your school to somebody else's school. It's not the same. It's never going to be the same. There's no principal dad at my school. I'm the teacher and the principal. There is no PE person. When my kids first started doing homeschool, the pastor of our church was our PE person. Every time they went to co-op, he would take them outside and play games and fetch. And I'm a person in the middle, dodgeball. And There was a tree that fell down in the yard, and he would teach them how to climb trees. He taught my son how to climb trees. Now when we go to their house, Jackson is all the way up in the tree. I'm like, why is my child? Never mind. He taught him how to climb the tree. So I don't have that piece of having the dad. It's just not something that I have. That's okay. I give my kids what I can, and I outsource what I can't. Jackson loves to draw, so we found a YouTube playlist and a thing that he can practice his art skills. So he has beginning art. I can't draw. I'm not going to worry about what I can't do. As the parent, I'm going to outsource the curriculum that I can find. Now, also, they do a foreign language. So they started Rosetta Stone in March, but we switched over to Duolingo. That just works out better, and it's more kid-friendly. It looks a little bit more animated, and they just enjoy that one better. It's also free. So curriculum doesn't have to cost you anything. I do pay for curriculum. I also look for deals. Check homeschool groups, homeschool pages on Facebook always have sales. Different times I check on eBay for curriculum. This year we were very fortunate where people blessed us and we were able to get new curriculum for the very first time. Since my kids have been schooling in 6 years, we got the brand newest curriculum ever, period. And I was like, oh my word. Normally we would not have had that, but we do have it now, and I'm very thankful because we have always purchased on eBay. We found what we needed, but there's plenty of free curriculum out there that you can find. We started off with Jackson with a website called Easy Peasy. That for me did not compute. I couldn't figure out what she was doing or how her days were running because it was like a 1, 3, 5, 7 something. It was crazy. It didn't work for me. So don't expect one curriculum to fit all. Find what works for your family and use that. So again, with my curriculum, they're both on computers now because Jackson's going into 7th grade. He's 11 years old. He's going into 7th grade. And sister is 16 and she's going into 11th grade. So what I do is I set up their school with all the days they're going to be there. I take out all their holidays, all of the things. I set them up into semesters. So I have fall semester and spring semester. Then I go through their curriculum and I look. This curriculum has a lot of projects. I mean, it's nothing to have 3 or 4 projects per unit. That's way more projects than my kids need. So I delete those out. I just delete them, period. I'll go through and look and see, okay, this might be something we need to go further in, but I just delete them out because they don't have to hit everything. I had a parent message me yesterday and she's like, hey, my kid's going into 8th grade math. Which of these subjects should we focus on? So what I did was I went out to my Facebook group and I said, 8th grade math question, which of these would you focus on? And they gave me the same answers I gave her. I wanted to make sure what I was saying was correct. And then I reached out to an 8th grade math teacher that I know. I'm like, hey, what about this? And she was like, nope, this is what I would suggest. I was like, well, good. That's what I told her. And so it worked out fine. Just because it's in the curriculum doesn't mean they need to study everything. Sometimes you just have to hit the highlights and move along. Hit the main things. Stay with the main things, even if you have to stay there a little bit longer. But some of the extra enrichment stuff, because not all curriculum that we teach is core. Some of it is supplemental. So the supplemental pieces, if you don't have time for those, pop them out. Or I know my son likes to do science projects. So what I've done is made summer for science experiments. And I got him some books from Ollie's that have all kinds of experiments in them. We use that for the summer months when I'm home because that's my schedule. And I love my traditional school schedule because I'm able to be home in the summer and we can do a little bit more enrichment. This year we planted a garden. That counts as agriculture. That counts as horticulture. 1, planting the garden. The kids do everything. They water, they weed, they plant. They had to measure out how far this seed needs to be from that seed. Do we have enough soil? They do it all. And they do very well with it. And I'm thankful, but you find things. So that would be a part of your eclectic style, bringing in some other things. And for me, that's a little challenging because I think very curriculum, or I think very line by line, curriculum. So I've had to change over the years. My homeschooling has evolved. Now my kids are much older. They don't always need me sitting right there with them. But I can if they need that. If you're in a situation where you have young kids, 2 years old, 3 years old, they're not quite in school, there's a lot of play that goes on. So let them play while you're helping brother or sister. Then switch out kids. Or if you have older siblings that can help younger siblings, that works as well. There's a lot of people doing what's called game schooling. Scrabble is used for spelling. And they're Scrabble Junior. So if you have a Scrabble board, if you don't, you can get one of those for very cheap, or you can make your own letters. I remember when Jackson was little, I just printed out the letters, laminated them, and then cut them out, and then he could make his own words. So it doesn't have to be a book and a pencil. It can be all different things. When Jackson was 2 years old, we started taking trips. I was brave enough then to actually venture outside of my house. I have to tell a whole story about being afraid to leave my house. That's a whole nother thing. But when Jackson was 2 years old, I finally felt brave enough to venture out of my house. But I couldn't figure out how to manage my kids in the back of the car while I was trying to drive and stay mindful and aware of where I was going. And because sometimes I get directionally challenged. Thank God for GPS. So I had this CD book set. It's C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. It's 19 CDs that I had bought for my oldest son from one of those school book things they were having at school once. We had never used it with my older son. I'm in the car with my younger kids. And Trendon, trying to think, was Trendon home then? Yes, Trendon was he was about 15 at the time. So I put in the CDs, and the kids knew they were not allowed to talk in the car because Mom had to drive. Because they would say, Mom, look at me. And I can't look behind, that's unsafe. So I was like, okay, no talking in the car. Mom's driving. And I put in, so we used books on CDs for years. And my kids, we on our third set of the same set of CDs, The Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis, 19 CD set. And my kids still listen. And Jackson is 11 years old and sister's 16. And I love it. And because it has that biblical undertones in there, even through the story, we've been able to have some very rich conversations about things. And so that's, again, teaching as well. Some people call that car school. I remember when we joined the African American history study, we had to read a book called Crow. Well, we didn't have time to read it because my kids are in Taekwondo very heavily and we drive. But our drive is about 30 minutes. So we found Crow on CD at the library. We rented it. We put it in the car, and to Taekwondo we would listen. Back from Taekwondo we would listen, and we would listen until we got done. Well, what that did for my kids is that gave them such a love for reading. My kids read voraciously. They read like mad people. If they could only read, they would read. And I love that. So it was audiobooks that prompted the love of reading. And I'm a reader. So, of course, they see me reading. So if Mom has a book, they have a book. If you're taking a quiet time, they get a quiet time. Get out a picture book for the little ones. You can require, again, I go to Erica's required reading list and I just say, okay, let's look down this list and see what we can find. We take a library trip. I have a educator's card at the library that lets us take out more books than normal. And then we can keep them longer than normal. So we do that and it works out very well. So again, it's up to you. So when I test my kids at the end of the year, Jackson sometimes tests higher in reading vocabulary than sister. That's just their learning styles. Jackson is very academic. He's high academics for 11 years old. Him and my older daughter are about on the same academic level. That doesn't mean sister's not as academic. It just means she struggles some. So we get that. We modify for her and do what we need. This year, we were cleaning out the garage and we were making some room in our pantry for our 3 to 6 months pantry stuff. And we found a book called The Children's Thesaurus. Now, that book had been sitting out in our garage for 6 years. Alana picked up the book because she's a writer. She loves to write. So I use a little creative writing with her. She said, Mom, she was trying to figure out how she could increase her vocabulary. I said, you have to read higher level books. She wasn't here for that. She likes to read what she likes to read, whatever. So I said, well, in your writing, maybe some of the words you're using are pretty low level. Let's see if they have any books, any words in the thesaurus that you can kind of switch out the words. She opens the thesaurus, and it's like the light bulb came on in her life. And she was like, oh, Mom, this word, and I can use this word, and I can trade it out for this word. I mean, it opened up, and she's 16. Well, she should have known that by now, but she didn't. It's okay. They get it when they get it. So again, don't look at it as my kid has to do all of this by this age. They're going to get it when they get it. They get everything from you. Your habits really do shape who your children are. If education is important to you, it'll be important to them. So that's how it is. So the biggest things I can tell you is this. Your school won't look like anybody else's school. Homeschool doesn't have to be Monday through Friday, the regular school schedule. There are plenty of families that school all year long, 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. There's some families who school a week on, a week off all year long. As long as you meet the requirements for your state, do what your state requires you to do. Some states require you to keep a portfolio of all the work that you've done over the year, to include your attendance, any testing materials, whatever your state requires. So know what your requirements are. For our state, we don't have to do that. But because I was in the middle of a bad separation and divorce, when I mentioned to my ex-husband that I was going to homeschool the kids, he was not here for it. He was not all in my corner, rah, you're going to do great, it's going to be good. He was like, no. So what I told him was, this is what we're doing. I'm just letting you know. Now, again, you have to look at what kind of agreements you have with your spouse, if you're divorced or whatever, to figure out if you're, we don't have any court orders that says I have to send my kids to school. I can do what I want. And, but for his sake, I did this for his sake. At the end of the first year, when I tested sister, I made sure to get a copy of the detailed test report, and I sent it to his email. When it came to my email, I forwarded it to his email. I also started keeping a notebook. Every attendance record, all their grades, everything. And I would keep that for him so that he would be just as in the loop as I was. When we went into the stay-at-home order, we didn't skip a beat. He didn't feel no type of way because he knew the kids were doing exactly what they would have been doing anyway, because we had already been schooling for so long. His family was against it. My family was against it. And after about the first or second year that we schooled, because his family's a bunch of educators, his principal aunt, she was a principal in school. She was like, oh, my niece and nephew, they're like the smartest kids. They do this and they know this and they didn't, and they would just rattle off those. She would call them and quiz them. She'd say, okay, if you know all the quizzes, you're going to get $2. But she was really checking up to see if I were doing what I was supposed to do. And they passed all the tests that she gave them. So they did very well. But again, some people do unschooling. Let your kids figure out what they want to learn. Jackson was in here with me yesterday and he was talking. He said, Mom, can I borrow your phone? I said, sure. What are you looking up? He was looking up primates because he had gotten a book from one of our friends and it was about primates. And he wanted to make sure that what the book said was actually true. So he was doing a YouTube search to figure out if the book was right. Dogs barking, videos getting long. So anyway, I may do a couple follow-up videos just to this one, but homeschooling, while we're in the situation that we're in right now, it's really not traditional homeschooling. There are no co-ops. There aren't any field trips. And that's what makes up the bulk of homeschooling. Right now, what we're doing is schooling from home, especially if you're pulling from the curriculum that is being given by your school system. That's not what we would traditionally call homeschool. You're just schooling at home. So there's a total difference. But we get it. We understand. We do what we have to do to meet the needs that we have at the moment. So take the pressure off. Do what you need to do. You don't have to have supplemental. If all you can do is what they're sending through school, do that. If you just want your kids to learn this year, do that. If you, again, like I said, I supplement out. My oldest daughter is very fluent in Spanish, and she's also fluent in American Sign Language. I'm like, look, we need an elective. How can you help us? What days are you free? Well, she teaches elementary school, so she's only free on Saturdays. I'm like, hey, pencil us in. And she would give the kids ASL lessons via virtual. If you can find a virtual book club. Jackson just about a month ago, a couple moms and myself in the group that I'm in on Facebook decided we wanted our boys to continue their reading, and not only to read, but to discuss and have some rich discussion. So we created a book club virtually. The boys meet on Zoom every Saturday. And the moms, we're usually sitting somewhere close to the kids so we can interject if we need to, because they're like 9, 10, 11, you know, they're in that age. But they pick their own books. They have their own discussions. They lead it all. They start the Zoom. They record the sessions. We don't do anything. We just are there if they need some help. So you've got to let your kids have some type of autonomy. They're going to be okay. If you find yourself having to send your kids back to school, pray over them, that the Lord will protect them and keep them safe, and that they would get everything that they need. Thank God if they're in a situation where they're able to be at home for a couple weeks or what have you. We're going in my system 4.5 weeks virtual, and then we're back in the building on a day, B day. So it just has to work out for your family right now. If you work night shift, when you come home in the morning, you know, allow your kids to maybe do their elective things while you sleep, and then you start schooling. I have a friend, her name is Sunny. She's in one of my groups on Facebook. She would school her kids from like midnight to 3 a.m. because that was the shift she worked. So her kids would go with her to work because she was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And she would school those kids from midnight to 3 a.m. They were perfectly fine. They would go to sleep after school and be right back up doing doing whatever things that they had to do. She was in a different state than I'm in. So, you know, it's different. Find your village, find your people, get online, find people in your immediate community. If you can't do co-op, again, do something virtual. Keep yourself in the loop, and then find parents that can sit with you and talk about things that you're going through as a parent. I still have to sit down with people and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I need help with this, or are you available to help me with this? So anyway, this video is getting a little bit longer than I had planned. I may go back and just pull out some of those pieces and do kind of a series on those pieces. But if you have questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments below. I don't know everything, and if I don't have the answer, I'll try to find it for you. I'm out here. I'm a resource. Let's find some resources. I'm about using the resources to get people the help that they need. So, anywho, I hope it was informative and helpful for you. I was jumping around quite a lot, but my kids are so much older now, and I've been doing this a long time, and I forget that there are some beginners. So if you have any questions that you need answered, please leave them down in this comment section. I'll be happy to answer. I'll list any homeschool resources I can in the description box below that you're able to use if you have any questions. But there it is. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you like the video, thumb it up. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.